Solution number one!
The Soviet conflict in Afghanistan was from December 1979 to February 1989. A part of the Cold War, it was fought between the Soviet-Afghan forces against the Mujahideen. The Mujahideen was a multinational rebellion made of two alliances, the Peshawar 7 and the Tehran 8. The initial deployment of the Soviet Army in Afghanistan began in December 1979 and continued during the 1980s. The final troop withdrawal began in May 1988 and ended in February 1989. Due to the indeterminate nature of the war, the conflict in Afghanistan has sometimes been referred to as the Soviet Union's Vietnam War.
The Republic of Afghanistan was formed after the Tsar Revolution in April 1978, which terminated the previous monarchy. The government was pro-poor, pro-farmer, socialistic, and had close ties to the Soviet Union. During the first 18 months, the government applied Soviet-style modernizing reforms, which conservatives viewed as opposing Islam. Changes set in marriage customs and land reform were not well received by a people with deep immersion in tradition and Islam. By mid-1978, a rebellion started with rebels attacking a garrison in a region of eastern Afghanistan, and soon civil war spread throughout the country.
The Afghan government, armed with a treaty that allowed them to call on Soviet forces, urged for the movement of troops into Afghanistan. The Soviet government eventually responded and sent tanks, BMPs, and troops to guard the government in Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan, and several airfields. With a deteriorating security situation, large numbers of Soviet paratroopers joined stationed ground troops and began to land in Kabul. Eventually, the Soviets decided to take control of Afghanistan themselves, and in late December 1979, 700 Soviet troops disguised as Afghans assaulted the government palace and took control. Now that the Soviets held power in Afghanistan, their first battles were with various opposition groups. Soviet troops entered Afghanistan, quickly taking control of major urban centers, military bases, and strategic installations. However, the presence of Soviet troops did not have the desired effect of pacifying the country. Instead, it intensified the nationalistic feeling, allowing the rebellion to spread further. The combat developed into a pattern where the Soviets occupied the cities and main positions of communication, where the Mujahideen, who were comprised of small groups, waged guerrilla warfare. Almost 80% of the country escaped government control. In May 1985, the seven principal rebel organizations formed the seven-party Mujahideen alliance to coordinate their military operations against the Soviet army. Late in 1985, the groups were active in and around Kabul, unleashing rocket attacks and conducting operations against the communist government.
In the mid-1980s, the United States, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, the United Kingdom, Egypt, the People's Republic of China, and others assisted the Afghan resistance movement. The U.S. viewed the conflict in Afghanistan as an integral Cold War struggle. The CIA provided assistance to anti-Soviet forces through the use of Operation Cyclone. In Operation Cyclone, no Americans had direct contact with the Mujahideen, but they supplied billions of dollars in weapons to the Afghan militants. It was one of the CIA's longest and most expensive covert operations. At least $3 billion in US dollars were funneled into the country to train and equip troops with weapons. The arms included FIM-43 Red-Eye shoulder-fired anti-aircraft weapons that they used against Soviet helicopters.
In 1989, after 9 years and many casualties, the Soviet Union withdrew completely from Afghanistan. The escalation began to end in 1985 with Mikhail Gorbachev and his new thinking on foreign and domestic policies, which contributed significantly to the Soviets' decision to leave. Gorbachev was attempting to ease Cold War tensions by withdrawing troops from Afghanistan, who had garnered so much international commendation. At the same time, Gorbachev pressured the Cubans in Angola to scale down activities and withdraw, even though they were finding success. The Soviets withdrew troops out of Mongolia in 1987, where they were far more successful than in Afghanistan. The mass withdrawal of Soviet forces from contested areas show the Soviet government's decision to leave Afghanistan was based on a general change over Soviet foreign policy.
Created using Powtoon.